Welcome to Middle Fingers Up, the show where we hold our heads high and our middle fingers higher. I'm your host, Kieran McKay. Welcome to 2025, episode 110. This one is called The Application to the Angry Brown Girl Club. Before I get started though, I do want to point out, and I want to show you guys, I have notes here. So if you see me not looking at you and you see me looking here, it's because I have all these carefully crafted notes when I'm putting these episodes together. A lot of time it's how I want things said. So just in case you wondered what I was looking at. Okay. So let's take the time here to give you a little context. What are we doing this year? So one of the things that we were so grateful, some feedback we were grateful to receive last year was from somebody that I look up to in the creative world. And they had noted from listening to some of our episodes that there were moments where I would share some personal parts of my journey, and perhaps moments where I shared ways that I have come along in that personal part of the journey. And I think some people were connecting to this. And so the suggestion from this friend was to do separate segments. And so I loved it. And almost a year later, we are officially launching, as you know, Shup. We started dabbling with Shup last year. Shup, I always remembered as a kid, was an opportunity for the elders to get together and have short moments of connection. Sometimes it was a little toxic because it was one-upping each other, but a lot of times it was meant to catch up. And so we thought we'd do these Shup segments, which are short, and for you to catch on the fly, because we know time is of the essence and you give us a lot, and sometimes 2 hours or 3 hours is a lot. So thank you for all the time you do give us. And here's to launching a little series that is part of Shup. So this is the application to the Angry Brown Girl Club. And that is what we're calling this segment 1 of 5. Today's episode is officially the application to the club. Imagine this as my resume, and except instead of like previous jobs, I'm listing my experiences with navigating identity, and the white girl complex, as I have been calling it. Waking up brown. So this is my way of saying I'm ready to be here. So let's begin. I'd like to do a little dedication because I use the term waking up brown, and that's not mine, and we need to give credit where credit is due. And I also use the Angry Brown Girl Club, which is a part of, you might have heard me referencing before, Ruby Hamad's book, White Tears, Brown Scars. She calls a lot of the moments women of color go through, kind of like our submission to the Angry Brown Girl Club. And so I'm borrowing that concept, but not really borrowing, more so asking if these women that I look up to, if I can be part of this club, because I'm ready to leave the cool Brown Girl Club. So just a little dedication I'd like to read. I want to dedicate the segment to Saira Rao, Ruby Hamad, and all the women who have bravely stepped forward to expose and dismantle the systems that uphold white supremacy, both outside and within us. To the women who are still on this journey, starting this journey, ahead of me on this journey, have no idea what this journey is, and all of them in between. You may not have, yet seen the ways that you've been shaped or silenced by these systems. And this series is for you as well. It's not a judgment, but a recognition of how deeply these forces run, like really deep. I hope you find the courage and maybe even the curiosity to question and unlearn and to reconnect with the parts of yourself that the world has asked you or told you to hide. So segment 1 of, I think, 5, let's see, my resume for the club. So like any good application, let's start with my qualifications. Okay, so previous clubs that I have belonged to. So I have been a proud member of the Cool Brown Girl Club. Let me tell you about this club that I was so proud to be part of. This is a club where there is an unspoken rule, very simple, never rock the boat. So you blend in, you laugh at the jokes, you let others correct you, and even when you know better or you know the answer, you don't argue it, you go along because you know your place, you know your role. You stay as far away from your cultural roots as possible. Unless, of course, a white person brings it up. And that's when it's either tied to something related to news or some kind of fetishized, the pretty parts of our community. And as my role in the Cool Brown Girl Club, I welcomed all conversations that fit those extremes. Side note, I just want to say right now is sometimes you're so cool and you're so cool as a brown person or a woman of color or person of color, that you bring some kind of safety and comfort for conversations like being told, the other day, literally by a white guy, I had a conversation and they were explaining someone to me and sort of said in a way of, like the look of the yoga woman. This was a British white woman. And it was just very interesting that these conversations go on minute after minute, all day, every day in moments. And, a lot of the sort of pussyfooting around them is really where I've been living in that discomfort. And so today and this year and sort of these series are to like really go there and question where the discomfort is coming from. And honestly, like talking about some of these previous clubs that have led to how I form my identity. And I know I'm not the only one out there. So this is kind of why we're doing this. Anyways, back from my, not a good skill as we're going over my resume is my side quests. Anyways, I was always welcomed into this white space or in this sort of club to be the cool brown girl. Because it's like you're a step below. You're always a learner. You don't know more. And, a lot of times my experiences with white women has been this high they get, in this need to teach. And often it's like throwing stuff at you that really say, oh, this is what civilization is. And I have some examples, that, one in particular is being taught at the age of 35 how to wear a tampon. So I think it's like you think back and you think, how did I find myself in this situation? But I did find myself in that situation. And so these are the things that I'm unraveling, like what was my role and how I got here. My badge of honor, as we talk about my previous clubs here, definitely mastering the art of being the fun brown girl in the cool brown girl club. So, the one who was different. I loved being different. That was a high that I chase. Just, you're so different, or dating people and white guys, and just like, oh, you're so different. You're not like the other brown girls. And it's like separation. Those patterns are going on globally too. And when you look at it your day to day, it's ways to separate us. And I really liked being in this club because I liked being unique and I liked being different. And I really had I felt that was what belonging was. But the thing was, I wasn't really different. I was trying to fit what they wanted me to, the different that they wanted me to be or thought that I should be, like the familiarity. And, so anyways, here I am the cool girl, sprinkling, all sorts of white supremacy at gatherings, honoring the jokes, telling the jokes, answering the questions that have nothing to do with my people, but, assume that they do because the question's coming at me. Again, things like of how did I get here and what role did I play? Born and raised in Canada, constantly quizzed on white pop culture. There's not a whole lot that I knew of. And my responses always were tied to how like apologetic we were, or my family didn't know better. But like my family was going through their process of surviving like many of our families. And so they weren't really in a place to be telling me to go watch whatever ET movie that was on. And I think there's a lot of work also that when we transition out of the cool brown girl club and maybe want to be part of the angry brown girl club, you start to see some patterns in your own family and your dynamics and things that you've blamed your own family for, or your culture for, that really isn't necessarily the facts. But there's you always want to place blame somewhere. So I just want to also talk about being this fun brown girl for a second. Like when I was part of this club, I'm the token friend. And so I loved, like I said, being that token friend. And I know some of you can relate to that. And I would really encourage us to lean into that. There's something to unlock there, in terms of why we go there, why we allow ourselves to continue to be in that place. And maybe I'll give an example here. I have shared the parts of a dinner that I was part of with another couple that was white, and my husband and I with them, and it ended in a very poor, racist conversation that still has resulted in us not talking since that night. Not my husband and I, the couple. And there that night, I realized my role in being that token friend, because the white woman across the table said to me, my best friend's brown. And I remember saying, God, I really hope like you don't tell them you said that, because I don't know if they'd want you to say that. And it made me realize when I said that, like, holy crap, I've been that best friend. I've been this fake ally or encouraged something in my white female friends. And it's not really truly them being that support that we're looking for, but we, tiptoed around it and allowed it. And, we show up for you like Pokemon cards, right? Like you want to trade us and keep us. And so here's that token. You can pull that card of like, oh, my best friend's Asian, my best friend's brown. And I didn't really understand why people would tell me that, like, oh, you're brown, my best friend's brown. But now I know it's like a way to form some kind of allyship, but it's fraud. It's fake. It's not real. And if we're women of color that are the best friends of these white women, we really need to stop encouraging that and stop allowing our friends to represent our relationship like that, because that's not truthful and helpful. I think it's really important as well, as a woman of color, something that I've learned as well in this token friendship with a white woman is, when a woman of color has come to me before and shared like a racist encounter, like, oh, your friend that we were hanging out with said this or made this remark, or I felt this way. It's a lot of like, oh, that's your experience, brown friend or friend of color. That's not how I know that person. And I was caught on the other end of that as well, where I was trying to share with this mutual brown friend about an incident with our mutual white friend. And it was the same sort of resistance I was met with. And I think that's also something we have to lean into. And, I don't know, I can't tell you how to do it. I definitely had to do it for myself. Like what my role on both ends, like what is that? And what kind of message are we delivering to each other when we find ourselves in that situation all the time, yet we can't fend for each other and are saying, oh, it's, no different than when white people are like, oh, is that really how it happened? And that's what we're doing to each other. So I think that's definitely something that I want to highlight as a skill or something that I've learned about myself in this application process that I have been paying better attention to, which has also helped me build better connections with a lot of brown women, which I'm very grateful for. All right. So going back to As I was writing my application, I had some examples that popped up that in my head that really related to what helped me as a child shape my kind of identity and this like need to assimilate and really push into that one direction of wanting to be white. And I think a lot of these examples that come in my head, these three in particular, they all resulted with feeling shameful because it was, again, something I didn't know. Like I didn't know that was Jesus. I didn't know that was Elvis, or I didn't know something that, again, is assumed that we all should. And it's not really Canadian North American history, it's white people history or pop culture, because we're not really then talking about Indigenous history. And so I think like sometimes we all get confused with like, no, this is just you as a white person really wanting us to know all this stuff about the culture, your culture. It's not something that's really for all of our culture. And I think sometimes it starts to feel like, when I didn't know much about the North American culture, then that's when I would feel shameful, because it's like, oh, you don't know that, or you don't know that. And so then you start to like want to learn better and watch the country music channel after school so that you know the songs or whatnot, because it felt like a test always. Like I had to pass a test. And I don't know if I was always really good at passing that test. So maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that'll help me get into the Angry Brown Girl Club. Okay, so leadership role, right? Gotta share some leadership roles to hopefully help me in this application process. I also served as a president of the White Girl Complex Club. Lots of clubs I was part of. My duties included minimizing myself in every room, not intentionally, of course, that would be rude. Idolizing like whiteness as a pinnacle of success. I wanted my job. I wanted my life. I wanted my career. I wanted all these things to follow this, and put this pressure on, because I was living in and around white spaces. And so that's the space that I feel like I have to be part of. And, once I started to realize, and, I can tell you the exact moment when I started to have that unraveling, and that moment, they ask you sometimes, and Saira talked about this in Deconstructing Karen. You know what? I'm going to pause for a second because I didn't say this earlier when in my dedication. I talked about where Ruby is from. Saira, I watched her and her partner, Regina, the two women got together into this project called Deconstructing Karen. Really encourage you guys to watch it. Learned a lot. And that is where Saira had talked about waking up brown. And I always called it like, oh, I woke up and realized I wasn't white. So we're going to get to that part another day. How language changes. But for now, in this application process, I think, a big part of why I'm sharing this is because, you idolize and you think that you're part of white feminism and you think this is how it's supposed to be. So you're working really hard to fit into that mold. And it's just not attainable. So you're always feeling like you're failing because you're never good enough at these tables or at these dinners. And, always, even before going out, I remember if I was going to go out, with a few white women, that were going to be at the tables, like this pressure of even when I was getting ready and how I had to look. And so I never really put those things because I looked at them not as patterns, but I looked at them as like separate individual. And it's always, when we look at things not as collective and individual, it's always interesting how that maps out. But you know what? I'm going to share one more story here because I stopped to go back for the dedication because I forgot something. And then I was jumping into leadership roles, but I'm going to go back for a second because before that I was sharing sort of some stories and kind of moments that were popping up as I was preparing for this that all really had the themes of leaving the situation feeling shame of like, I should have known, or how could, like, I'm white. Why am I not being white enough? Like, what's my problem? And I think another one that I'd like to share is by 16. Like, so in high school, I had earned the name Brown Barbie. I had a Valley Girl talk and I had this whole thing and I loved it. I loved every part of it. Right? Need I say more? And by 16, I was trying to kind of like the last few pieces to fix myself to really fit in. The white beauty standards and the sort of cultural expectations in my community are, I stay neutral. Like, vanity isn't really a thing for us, but in the North American culture, it really is. So then you're you're wanting to ensure you look a certain way, and hairiness became my enemy. And the rule is always, if you have black hair, you can't have it. It's not okay. But you saw the girls always that were hairier than me with blonde hair, and that was never acknowledged, but ours was. So I started to find ways where I would hide and want to remove hair. And I discovered Nair. And, basically I put it on my back because that's what I needed to remove my hair with, and wait the 15 minutes, wipe it off. It didn't do its trick like it's supposed to. Put it on again, started burning because you're not supposed to put that on that sensitive skin. Wiped it off, was burning more, decided to jump in a hot shower to wash it off. Yeah, for a long time, scabs, you know how that whole thing goes. But it was COVID that I was thinking about the story, like when everything had to come to a halt and I couldn't go and get my eyebrows and waxing done. Like, why am I putting so much money and effort into something? Like, who decided this? And I don't have to keep following that. Like, I don't have to get rid of my hair. So if you were to see me lift up my shirt, my armpits, you would see my hairy armpits, and you would know that I'm not lying. Also, a skill that I have is being transparent. So there you go. So anyways, identity, vanity, all these kinds of things vanity all plays a role under identity, and all these sorts of things that shape us trying to fit who we want to be, who our role models are. If I'm looking to be more white or the North American way, I think you start to look at, straightening your hair with an iron and all these sorts of things that a lot of us brown girls did. But again, looked at it in separate, not, what is this doing? What is becoming of all of this, and where will it take us? And you don't really think about those things. I think a big skill required when I'm applying for the Angry Brown Girl Club, that has helped my leadership role, is dipping into the self-worth piece. I think when you start to unravel these things and recognize sort of what was happening all these years in these groups of friends, I start to realize they didn't really leave me. I left them. I've outgrown that. I've realized where my values are. Just to wrap up a little bit here, as we're talking about special skills and moving into like leadership. And one of them I talked about was recognizing the self-worth, and working through a lot of those interactions that weren't serving me, as I was just saying. But out of that self-worth, when you do that work, I think what really helps some special skills, you're kind of looking back and realizing that it's not, what do I need to do to fit in? It's like, how can I belong to myself? And I think that whether I get accepted into this Angry Brown Girl Club or not, I think that in itself was really rewarding, because it's helping me now when I go back to those feelings of, that was crappy, or having similar situations with white women. I feel better prepared and like realizing sort of where to set boundaries and like what I'm willing to do in these conversations and what I'm not willing to do. So anyways, if I can share, because I know it's an application, but if in this application there's a section to share some insights, I'd like to go back. I'd like to go back to that 16-year-old me and talk to her about your body, like, isn't the problem. The world's gaze is the problem. The hair, all of that is not necessary. We don't need to fit into that mold. We can figure out what the best mold for us is. And I really want to thank the women out there that have put a lot of work forth for us in helping us, not have to thread our eyebrows all the time, and, not have to shave our armpits all the time, and just say like, this is okay. I love to be part of the Angry Brown Girl Club because I feel that women like Ruby and Saira and so many other brown women that I'm getting the opportunity to spend time with are showing the importance of racialized space. And I've talked about this before, but I think that sometimes we try to make space effortless, and that you can transition from one to one. And when I really started paying attention, after that dinner with the friends, a couple of other friends that I'm not in relationship with, when you go back and you look at that, you realize, okay, there are ways that I can manage not putting myself in that situation. And one of those things is I have to understand, like, I'm in white people space and it's not the same as it is when I'm in brown space. And there is an actual difference. And once I learned how I breathe, how I behave, if my guard's up or down, all of that has to do with the space I am. I'm working on feeling more accepted in the brown space, but I rather have that feeling than the constant grind to try to belong to something that's just not possible. And frankly, not really something that's meant for me to be part of. And so that's also why I'd like to transition from the Cool Brown Girl Club into the Angry Brown Girl Club. Something that I think I read, if survival meant shrinking, then healing means expanding. And so I think part of a club like this that honors women to be where we're at and share our experiences, encourage us to help each other out. If we bump into each other in the bathroom, what kind of interaction do we want to have? And I know for me, I want to be the woman that someone can rely to give the toilet paper to. And in order for me to do that, I got to go back and figure out how I got to where I've gotten. And so if you are interested, this will be segment 1 of 5. After this Angry Brown Girl Club submission, we have a few more conversations that are related to being part of that club. But if I can end with one thing, I'd like to end with a little anthem. The Angry Brown Girl Club anthem. If there were to be one in my mind, this is how it would go. To every woman who's ever felt erased, silenced, or misunderstood. We are the daughters of resilience, the keepers of stories, and the breakers of cycles. We wear our anger like armor, not because we want to, but because we've had to. This anger isn't shameful, it's sacred. It's the fire that burns away the lies that we were told about who we should be. We are no longer afraid to take up space. We will speak even when our voices shake. We will challenge the narratives that tell us to be smaller, quieter, softer, because our power lies in our fullness, our volume, our truth. Together we unlearn, we heal, and we rebuild. Together we are unstoppable. This is our club, our anthem, our revolution. Stay loud, stay bold, stay angry.